Attorney General King, you want this to come to a vote of the people in the state of Alabama. If that's the case, does that mean that what's currently legal here in Houston County could change?
Well, certainly the people of Alabama retain the ability to change their own laws. In the mid-1990s, the people in Houston County voted and they approved an amendment to the Alabama Constitution. And it says that you can now have gambling legally in Houston County. Certainly, if there's another vote and they change their mind, that can be adjusted. What I've said here today is I'm opposed to gambling, morally and personally. I don't gamble. I'm not going to gamble. If it comes to a vote, I'm going to vote against it. But I don't believe as Attorney General that I have the prerogative or the privilege of choosing to enforce just some of the laws or to rewrite the laws to be what I wish they were or to enforce them in a way that I think morally or personally is the right way. I don't get to do that. I've got to follow the law the way that it was written and the way that it was approved by the people in this county. They did that, and I'm prepared to defend it. I wrote an opinion and explained the law as clearly as I know how to explain it. And that law is, I'm going to defend that law, and I'm not going to allow anybody else to come in and rewrite the law in an improper venue and an improper way. The proper place to address this is in the legislature. I've been there doing it. And just because it's hard or I can't get my way in the legislature doesn't provide a forum for me to now decide that I'm going to use or abuse my office to do it in a different way. And I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to let anybody else do it.
That vote would be for all electronic gaming?
It would be a yes or no vote. Do we want electronic gambling within the borders of Alabama? An amendment to the Constitution.
Why do you think the governor, why did he pick last week, what you said, I know you can't get in his mind, but why now? Why did he come forward?
You have to ask him.
As it stands now, with your opinions and with what we understand the authority of the governor to be, is there anything in any way that will slow down, impede, or stop progress on country crossing here in Houston County?
That's a very broad question. I don't know. Am I going to allow the prosecutions of this office to be used to change the law or ignore the law or enforce a law in a way other than the way that it's written?
Right.
No.
So there's nothing that's going to stop them from going ahead and proceeding as they.
That is a very broad question. All I can tell you is what I have jurisdiction and control over are the prosecutions and the activities of district attorneys and supernumerary district attorneys in this state. And I will superintend a case from anybody who tries to ignore the law or undermine the law. I'm just not going to allow that to happen. If they will change the law, if they'll have a free, open, honest debate about it and change the law, I'll enforce that law. But until they do, I'm going to enforce the law the way that it's been written. That's my job.
So under the authority that the governor has in his task force, there's nothing for the developers of country crossing to be worried about at this point.
You are asking very broad questions.
Assume something like that would come to the people a year or months?
Oh, it would be quick. I mean, we would be under all of the timetables that govern any election in Alabama. You'd have to have time to print absentee ballots, and some of it would be dependent on what the legislature said. The legislature could put it off and say it's going to be on the next primary ballot, the next general election ballot, or they could call for a special election. The call for a special election, there is a timetable that's set out in state law that this many days before you've got to have absentee ballots, this many days before you've got to publish it in the newspaper, it's got to be published this many times. So those timetables would control how quickly it could occur.
By law right now, explain kind of electronic bingo. What are the components that make electronic bingo, if you can?
Well, electronic bingo is bingo played on a machine. In 2004, when I became Attorney General, we conducted an extensive tour of Alabama. I did something that most people who are commenting on this have never done. I didn't drive by bingo halls. I went inside them. And I met with people who could explain to me how the machines work and what they actually do. And we issued a set of findings. Yeah, I'm from the Wiregrass. All I know how to do is talk plain and apply common sense. And it seems to me, if you're talking plain and you're applying common sense, what you'd say is if it's going to be an electronic version of bingo, it's got to play just like any other kind of bingo. For an email to be correspondence, it's got to be written just like it would if you wrote it out longhand on a piece of paper. Well, the same goes for bingo. So what we said is, every bingo I've ever seen It's a 5x5 grid card, bingo. You play it by covering up numbers that are selected randomly from a pool of 75 numbers. Not 100, not 200, not 95, 75. You got to play against other players. You don't play bingo against the house. You play it against each other. There's got to be somebody who wins every game. You don't ever have a bingo game that's bust. You play until somebody says bingo. Well, what I said is if what you are playing replicates all of those things, common sense tells me what you're playing is bingo. And if you're playing bingo and the law says you can play bingo and it doesn't put any other restrictions on it, I'm having a hard time understanding why that's not bingo. And we already have that in Alabama. The Indians have it, and they have it because the federal government has already recognized that to be bingo. So what we're talking about is not, are we going to drive all bingo or all electronic gambling out of Alabama? We're not. What we're talking about, are we going to give a monopoly to one group of people who don't pay taxes? That's really the issue. But be that as it may, I'm not here to defend Indian gambling. I'm not here to defend any gambling. I'm here to defend the law. And that's what I intend to uncompromisingly and unapologetically do over and over and over. On whatever the issue is. It's not just got to be gambling, whatever it is.
Speaking of Indians, there's a investigation